Yo, 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 welcome back. This is episode 8 now.
Episode 8, yeah. Episode 7 went live. We're on episode 8.
We're on episode 8. Wow. How far do like most podcasts go? I feel like
Not to
majority
8,
of
I
them-
don't think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm trying to catch up to the program. You know, they're on like episode
did 100, yeah.
4,550.
No, did you listen to their 100 episode special?
I did part of it. I wasn't
That's
able to
cool.
complete most of it. It was just kind of like throwbacks and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
They like it was like a clip show. I think they're on 102 now or something.
Yeah. 101. I think 102 comes out this week.
Yeah, I think Lady Izdahar is the guest on it.
No way.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Look good
I
looking.
think so. Yeah, maybe I have that wrong. I'll double check. But if you want to,
I hope so. She deserves it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway,
Well, yeah, guys, welcome back. Today we'll be talking about unions and labor for the most part, but we do have some updates on Palestine, some updates on some of the voting that went on, like Ohio, and we do have some updates on
the election. There was a mini election.
a little mini election, and
Yeah.
then also some stuff going on with Talib. Episode 104. Ooh, so they got
Yeah.
Lady Izdahar.
That's so cool.
Nice.
Our Seattle local. For those of you who don't know, Lady Izdahar is kind of a local Seattle historian. Does a lot of USSR Soviet history. She's also kind of I guess you could say, I hate the word influencer, but a TikTok influencer.
Yeah, I mean,
Instagram, TikTok.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think
I just don't
she's
like the
doing it
word.
for the right reason,
Right,
You
yeah.
know,
So-
versus just trying to be trendy or famous. She's like a TikTok influencer that got to that point from, educating people, which I think is fantastic. It's a great way to like bypass the
Yeah, for sure.
system. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
If you don't follow her already, go check her out, Lady Izdahar, Izdihar. We were lucky enough last Sunday, the 5th, to our local CP USA chapter, our Communist Party chapter in Seattle. We hosted I guess you'd call it a seminar, a lecture.
I would call it a seminar. Yeah,
Presented by CPUSA with. Hosted by Lady Izdahar. We got her to kind of come in and give a talk on Seattle's ties to the Soviet Union, the history between the Soviet Union and Seattle. It was an awesome talk. Kanan and I recorded that video and audio, so we're editing that down. That'll hopefully be out soon too. Check around for social medias. Check Lady Izdahar's stuff if you want to see her talk. That'll be up soon. But anyway, that's just cool that.
yeah. It's an honor, to be able to produce and edit
Yeah.
something for somebody like that. You know, that's our first time, I think.
Yeah, and she
Hopefully
was
not
super
last.
great. I was kind of like geeking out. I'm not like a big celebrity worshiping guy, but I was emailing Lady Izdahar to get those slides, and I was just
Yeah,
like,
that's-
no big
yeah.
deal. I'm emailing Lady Izdahar.
No
So
problem. No big
that
deal.
was a big deal. That was a big deal for me. So that was fun. Anyway, yeah, like you'd mentioned, there was an election. Today's Thursday the 9th. On Tuesday, the 2 days before 9. What's 9 minus 2? 7.
7. Quick
there
math.
wa-
Boom. 2 plus 2 is 4. Minus 1, that's 3. Quick maths.
Quick math. There was an election. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Well, so they had a couple of referendums going by, and some big things. I mean, as we all know, states by state are legalizing marijuana, and this time it is Ohio's turn. They passed a referendum with 57.79% of the vote. So out of the 3.8 million voters that cast a ballot, 2.144 million voters voted for. So it's great. And I think it takes within 30 days of election, it becomes fully legalized. And that it involves cultivation, manufacturing, the sale, the testing of it, and it's for 21 and older. So sorry if you got excited and you're 18 in Ohio.
It's 21 and over in all states too, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 21 and over in most states. I think it's like to go into a dispensary.
Correct.
I keep talking to my wife that I don't sleep well, and I don't smoke weed. I drink
Yeah.
a little, maybe too much, but that's that's my business. But I don't sleep. I don't sleep well. I don't know. My neck's always hurting me in the morning because I toss and turn, and I'm like, I should just go buy some edibles, pop an edible before I go to bed, and just sleep through the night.
What if I had a recommendation? I don't know how well your tolerance is.
Look, no, nothing. I haven't smoked weed in 10 years.
Yeah, goddamn. I would take half an edible. So I think
I'd probably take a quarter. I don't mean taking the whole thing. I just mean like getting an edible, and then I would probably try it small.
I've been smoking, ingesting, I don't know, snorting, whatever you want. I've never snorted marijuana, but I've been doing weed for 10 years now, 10
Doing
plus years.
weed.
We're doing weed, and doing the reefer and I still have a low tolerance. I don't know what it is,
Okay.
and I take 5 milligrams, like basically half an edible, and I'm like woo through the roof for like a whole like 3-4 hours.
Okay.
And yeah, I think by law all edibles here that are physical edibles, so not drinks, have to be sold by the 10 milligram packaging. I think it's be sold in a packaging that has more than one, but they each have to be individually wrapped 10 milligrams
Okay.
maximum, which I think is a good thing because you don't, just in case kid gets to it. 10 milligrams
Yeah, you
ain't
don't
gonna
wanna-
die, but man, if they had 100, they're
Yeah.
gonna be in one hell of a like mental shock.
I don't hang out with a lot of kids in my free time, but I did have once my roommate's dog. He had a little chihuahua, ate all of his weed. We had to take it to the emergency vet and had to get its stomach pumped, and it was puking and shitting charcoal for a while because it had to ingest charcoal to throw up the weed or whatever. Because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
a tiny chihuahua.
Yeah.
It was like a teacup chihuahua.
What do they give people when they're having like a panic attack from like way too much weed? I think it's like Xanax.
I mean, that's like a antidepressant.
Yeah.
Or not antidepressant, but anti-anxiety med. So
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but anyways.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry.
So,
I derailed us there with my musings on whether or not I should start smoking weed.
I recommend for anybody to at least try small portions. If they like, if they don't like it, pass it on.
Sure.
They ain't gonna die. So they're allowed with a limit of 6 plants per person and 12 plants per residence.
It's weird how they decide those numbers.
God knows. But I mean, do a plant I think grows like an ounce, which is like 28 grams, which is like 56 half gram joints. So you could literally have like hundreds of joints. I think that is plenty. Unless you're Wiz Khalifa, it imposes a 10% tax at the point of sale for each transaction. So,
Yeah, I mean, a lot
Not
of,
bad.
as we know, I think it was, I want to say it was California. I don't know. Like a lot of states, they write it into the law when they do legalize that the tax for those have to go to something specific. I think it's California. All weed sales, that tax goes to the local schools.
that's here
So it
too, I
should-
believe.
Yeah, I think it's Washington
That's
too.
here.
So
That's
it's,
great.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, sure, great. That's what that's what people on the left have been saying for years, right? Like legalize it and tax it, and then put that money back into like legitimate things.
Yeah, I mean, another thing you could do is just when you legalize it and then you tax it, you could tax it and have it just go for drug rehabilitation.
Yeah,
you know,
that'd be a good
so
one, yeah.
you just like, if people have problems, just use the money from drugs that we made to help them get off drugs. So it helps out. Another second thing that passed in Ohio was the abortion clause in their state constitution was ratified. So, what this means is, let's see what they have here. Up to, was it 23 to 24 weeks? Yes, 20 to 24 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's up to fetal viability, which
There
is
we go.
usually 23.
For some reason, I couldn't see that. And 57% voted for the proposed amendment. AP called the race with early votes, plus about 25% of Ohio's precincts reporting.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, nice. I think they both passed about the same.
Yeah.
They both passed about the same. Was it the other one was 57.79%? So it's the same people.
57 Yeah, it's the same people.
Same
I mean, and
people.
that's not unsurprising, right? Isn't it typically like what, I don't know the polling exactly on abortion and weed, but like those two things, and I think also like gun control is like majority of people everywhere, like 60-ish% of all Americans want abortion access, legalized weed, and more gun control. And so like if you
Absolutely.
have a vote for it, it typically passes, unless it's in a super gerrymandered like district.
Which is like half of America.
Yeah, which is most of America. But if it's like a state election or something, and your state shows up,
Yeah.
those things usually pass because that's typically what people want.
And I'm surprised there's not more, there's not more, how would I explain this? More gun control being passed through amendments like this.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have the people vote for it.
I assume a lot of that. Well, because not every state, and I don't know if even Ohio has this, but not every state has an amendment process that can be initiated by
The people.
people. I know Colorado does.
God,
I know Arizona does.
That's what we did in Washington.
Washington has its own kind
That's
of.
how we did it with weed.
Okay.
A referendum.
So you need to have that kind of like a citizen referendum, but then also like if it depends on your state house, right? If your state house is Republican controlled, then they can kill bills in committee before they're like actually moved to a vote to
Did
ratify.
not know that.
Yeah, so like like the U.S. Congress, that's why it's kind of important that like it's a big deal when Republicans take control of the House, because like the Foreign Affairs Committee or whatever committee can kill a bill before it reaches a floor vote, right? So the
Yeah.
Speaker can kind of kill a bill, the committees can kill a bill. So like
So even if you have
even if there's a bill that like Americans want, like McConnell or whatever in the Senate, or what's the new guy's name, Johnson in the House, they can kill a bill before it reaches for a floor vote. They just won't ever call it for a vote. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. So that's why, like,
suppressing.
Yeah, these things, these acts like abortion, healthcare, gun rights, legalize weed, they may be popular, have mass popular support, but if people can't vote for them, aren't allowed to vote for them, never like reach that point, then they can't vote for them.
Yeah, I wonder what it would take to have a referendum so large enough that like they wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean that's because it's only I think it's only like 8 states or something that allow citizen referendums. So like in most states you just you go out and you get enough petitions, and I think in Arizona it was like so much percentage of the registered voters in the state or in the county to get it on. So you had to have like I'm going to make up a number. I don't remember what it actually was. Like say 51% of registered voters sign a petition. So you need like however many registered voters there are. I think 51% was like a lot. I think it was like 10%. But like however many registered voters there are, you had to get a petition equal to 10% of that number or whatever. So like it ended up being 30,000 signatures or 40, however many it was. But not every state has that. In fact, very few states have that, as far as I understand.
What do we need to get the states to have that?
Amend their constitution, but that would again take.
God damn it.
That would take an act of their state house. Yeah, so it's kind of a circle jerk, right? Yeah,
it's a circle jerk. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. That's shout out to Ohio. That's great for Ohio.
Woo!
Legalize weed and abortion rights. I mean, that's if more states could kind of hop on that bandwagon, that would be great. But it is what it is. It's a slow process. It's what you mentioned with electoral politics. Social aspect is what happens, but it's slow.
Yeah. Well, the social aspect is still important.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I think even in that episode I mentioned, like, this is the time, if you're ever going to vote, like, don't vote for Biden, but, like, go out and vote for, like, these measures. Go vote for these, like, particular propositions and referendums in your city to, like, for tax levies, for school bonds, and for school funding increases, for legalizing weed, for legalizing abortion. I mean, these are the things you should go out and be voting for if you're going to go vote.
Because at the end of the day, like, weed, the fuck yeah, everybody wants to blaze a joint up in the air without getting in trouble. But what's really important is people are not going to go to jail anymore, for having a petty amount of marijuana. I think that's the most important. It's just like keeping people out of the prisons.
Well, what I really want to see is anytime you pass these laws to retroactively, suspend sentences for people that are in jail, because there's going to be people smoking weed in Ohio outside of prisons where people are in jail for smoking weed. So 100%. Like that, you never see that part, which is that's always the most frustrating part. Like there are people in life in prison in California for weed in California because they were, the 3 strikes rule prior to weed being legalized. You could get life in prison, while like city employees and cops can legally smoke weed. So it's just like you're spending, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
we should spend some time on that later. But that's the frustrating part, is they never actually like include that into the language of the bill. Anyway, moving on. Labor. Good news for labor. The SAG-AFTRA strike, for anyone keeping score, is over. The Writers Guild, they won their strike not too long ago, and now following quick suit is the SAG-AFTRA strike. Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, about 160,000 strong, I think, all told, went on strike for 118 days. It ended Wednesday, the November the 8th. There was a tentative agreement reached. They were on strike for a total of 7 months. The tentative agreement was agreed to, but it will be finalized tomorrow, November the 10th. So we don't know the complete details of the strike, of the agreement, but those will be made public tomorrow, hopefully. All in all, that 7-month strike cost, I guess, California and Hollywood an estimated $6.5 billion in lost revenue and 45,000 total jobs. But shout out to Fran Drescher, kind of leading up that SAG-AFTRA union. When I learned that it was Fran Drescher, it was like the president of SAG-AFTRA, I was like, that's what she's been up to.
Shout out to commie queen, dog.
Yeah, shout out to Fran Drescher, just like killing it.
Mr. Sheffield.
Yeah, so the agreement was, we mentioned them a few episodes ago, I think, the AMPTP. It's the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So that's the kind of the guild of producers that are on the other end of the table against the SAG-AFTRA. So these are kind of the head honchos, the Bob Igers, the Ted, whatever, the Netflix CEO, I forget his name, Ted something. Anyway, what we do know is that there is a big boost to minimum pay, more streaming revenue, so kind of royalties from streaming. We know that they get better benefits, and the big one is they do have now protections against AI. Again, we don't know the full details, but there will be more to come out tomorrow. So maybe next episode we'll have a little update with their details.
Probably like with the AI, it's probably using their likeness.
Yeah, I'm sure like all the minutia will come out, but I think that's what it is. They're not allowed to be scanned and used as like background actors, which was kind of a big thing. So AI was a big sticking point for the Writers Guild for written scripts. And it's also a big thing for written extras, or excuse me, for AI extras.
And I hate to bring it up, but like, dude, Black Mirror literally made an episode on this.
I still haven't watched that. I'll have to check it out.
You'd have to check it out. It's crazy.
I don't have time, man. And I don't watch much anyway. So, I mean, I am excited because this is...
No, we get some more content.
We'll get more content for stuff. Like I said, I haven't really followed a whole lot. I used to be like a big like movie and TV guy. But I don't know, the last couple of years maybe I've kind of fallen off. I think I'm going to go see the Marvels this weekend. I don't know. I'm not a big buy into the Marvel propaganda machine anymore, but but I don't know. The Marvels looks fun, and I liked
the first few of them were really good. I thought that when they started overproducing them just to produce them.
Then just pumping out 3 a year just because like the last few have all been pretty bad. But I liked Miss Marvel, the TV show. It was a young I think it was a young Pakistani actress. It's a cool show. Anyway, it's more of that, so I'm down for that. Anyway, moving on. You want to talk about the Kaiser Permanente?
Sure. As some of you may have heard, Kaiser Permanente, the associates there, did go on a strike. It was a short-lived strike because you can't really I mean, it's a little gray with doing strikes as a hospital or as some sort of a medical agency because there are people that need to be tended to that are on life support and all that kind of stuff. So it was short term. But what happened is they did get a new 4-year contract reached as of today. So 85,000. Yeah, that's what it is. Man, I might need glasses soon. 85,000 members in the coalition of Kaiser Permanente unions. 98.5% voted in recent weeks to ratify the contract. So it was a great success for them. That's what they wanted. The coalition said in a press release it runs retroactively from October 1st through the 30th of September 2027. Nice. So a good 4 full years pretty much. And it includes a minimum wage set to 25 in California and 23 to other states. And the workers will also see a 21% wage increase over 4 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that would have been a big deal. If 85,000... I think they're all nurses, right? It was nurses specifically, or just 85,000 healthcare workers. I don't know if
it's just healthcare workers from. Yeah. I believe it's just healthcare workers in general.
I mean, that's a huge deal. I mean, that could kind of cripple a healthcare, network in a city or in a state, excuse me. Which, big deal.
Yeah, I still do think 21% is a bit low considering 4 years because it's about give or take about 5.
Yeah, if it's like 5 to 7% inflation per year.
Yeah, I mean you're just basically just meeting inflation. You're not.
Yeah, basically they're meeting inflation, which I guess like is kind of what people want, right? Like that COLA increase, like the cost of living increase for.
True, but it was too low to begin with.
Right.
So it needs to be like a little extra
on top of that. You need to stay ahead of that curve. Yeah, inflation plus a little extra. Yeah, I agree.
It should have been like 7% a year.
Yeah,
and so it should have been like 28%.
28%.
But maybe they're just going to take whatever they can get.
23 also is considerably higher than minimum wage, and I mean depending on the state. Like if you're in like a red state like Arkansas or something, where minimum wage is still like $11 or whatever.
If they have a location there, it says the majority of their locations are California.
Yeah, I know.
We do have one here, and I think it's Capitol Hill.
Yeah, for sure.
Capitol Hill.
There's a Kaiser here.
Yeah, so 23 here is honestly it's
that's not even that great, right? Like I think McDonald's starts like 22 here.
Exactly. So it looks fantastic, and it looks like they're getting there. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, this is the minimum wage.
Sure. These are for like the orderlies or whatever. Like the kind of, not to say that because you're an orderly you deserve less money. Obviously not, but like these are like nurses obviously make more than this.
It's the jobs basically that get less compensation for their actual work. But yeah, it's cool. At least there's something. It's something. Yeah. And obviously a lot of them agreed when about 99% of them voted to ratify it.
Yeah, that's a pretty huge percentage of approval, strike approval.
So if they approve it, I will be happy with it.
Yeah, for sure.
There's also I don't know how this bypassed it. I didn't see this till this.
I didn't
week.
see this at all, and this is relevant to me.
This is a teachers' strike in Portland, Oregon. They walked out last Wednesday. I believe that was the 1st or the 2nd, and basically about concerns of large class sizes, salaries that are not kept up with inflation, lack of resources, yada yada yada. A problematic cause for all teachers. I mean, this is like teachers have been saying this for the past 20 years. This is nothing new.
rough.
They just had the fucking nuts to walk out.
Yeah, it's rough out there for a teacher, man. I can tell you. Luckily, the school I work for does, for what it's worth, pay pretty decently. So I'm not like hard up, but it's still not. I would still argue for the amount of work I put in. It's not like fairly compensated, but I'd also argue that for the amount of like education you have to get, like my student loans and stuff, like to be a teacher is a full 4-year degree.
Yeah.
Plus student teaching. It takes a lot to become a teacher, and you're just not. Even though the compensation is in Seattle higher than say like most states, I would still say it's not like commiserate or comparable to like other jobs with a 4-year degree, right? Like a friend of mine just has a 4-year degree from the same college I went to, Arizona State University. He works for Microsoft, making like 8 times what I make, or 4 times what I make, or whatever. And it's like we went to the same college, we have the same type of degree. He has a degree in computer engineering. I have a degree in history and education. And then the libertarians among us will say, well, that's just the job market, right? You need to get a job in computer science if you want to make what a computer scientist makes. But I would argue that we also need teachers, and so teachers should also be paid.
I would argue that teachers are vastly more beneficial and important to society than some fucker trying to make Microsoft Excel a little faster.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
He is
care.
a friend, and I like him, so I'm not going to talk that much shit.
I'm not talking
Yeah.
shit about him. I'm just talking about the industry. Like
I would agree with that.
I'm
sure.
happy he's making that money, but the teacher should make the same amount of money, if not more, because at the end of the day, you're taking care of his kid's ass in school.
Yeah.
You got 30 kids every period, new kids. Some kids are having mental breakdowns. Some kids are having this. Some kids. So it's like you're almost like not only are you a teacher, but you're also like a confidant with a lot of students' problems. And And
I have 100 ninth graders that that I teach. That's 100 little lives.
Exactly, and you have to be
with.
influential. You have to be a good voice in their life. You have to. It's not. You're not just teaching history. You're a mentor.
Well, speaking of schools and my kids, actually, and this is kind of a good segue. There was a school walkout today in support of Palestine, a free Palestine, pro-Palestine school walkout. I don't know if it was Seattle-wide. I assume it was Seattle-wide because I don't teach anywhere near where the protest was. I'm not going to dox myself, but like. Not all of our students go. Most students didn't. They're not a monolith. They aren't all as politically aware, in particular the lower grades. But a lot of the upper grades, which I don't teach, they walked, and so there was a big walkout on my school today.
Wow!
Right at 10 o'clock, a lot of students just walked out. A couple of them yelled "Free Palestine," and they just left. And so, not for nothing, but my school is pretty supportive of that. They're like, we have to let the parents know for like. Just liability issues. Your kid's no longer on campus, but they're like, there's no repercussions.
Are you part of like a private school or a public school?
It's a public school. It's a charter school, but it's a public charter school. Yeah.
Nice.
So, speaking of, as a nice segue to Palestine and our usual congressional updates, Rashida Tlaib was censured in Congress for speaking out against Israel. For Palestine, she was rebuked. She was a vote passed 234 to 188, with 4 voting present to censure Rashida Tlaib. She's the 26th person in history to be censured, the second this year. And for those of you that don't know, myself included, I thought it was just a slap on the wrist. I didn't know if it actually comes with any like legitimate penalties, and it doesn't. A censure, according to the U.S. House rules, is a form of rebuke that, quote, registers the House's deep disapproval of member misconduct that, nevertheless, does not meet the threshold for expulsion. Generally, a censure is a condemnation of a member's actions, statements, or a combination of the two. So it is really just a slap on the wrist. Although typically what will happen, and this did not happen in Tlaib's case, but typically what happens is the congressman that's being censured has to walk down and stand in the well while the censure is being read to you. So it's literally you have to stand there shame, and like take it, and it's just so that just seems a little performative to me and bizarre. But they, I guess, for whatever reason, they didn't do that with her with Tlaib, so they just voted to censure her because she spoke out. And I have a couple quotes here, which is important from her. She said exactly what we say, which is, quote, "It is important to separate people and government. The idea that criticizing the government of Israel is anti-Semitic sets a very dangerous precedent, and it's been used to silence diverse voices speaking up for human rights across our nation." It's absolutely true, right? When you start conflating speaking out against Netanyahu, speaking out against the Israeli government for just being anti-Semitic, then, then we got a real problem. If I say I don't like Netanyahu's bombing campaign of Palestinian hospitals, that isn't saying I don't like Jewish people. But like these people apparently heard that. That's what they heard, is like, I don't like that Israel is bombing civilians. And they said, well, she must hate Jewish people.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just so frustrating.
the irony there is like, oh, Saudi Arabia was bombing Yemen for the longest time, and there's still a whole blockade going on. And it was Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen, and somebody said, well, I don't like what Saudi Arabia is doing. Is somebody calling them an Islamophobe? I have not heard that once.
Yeah.
And I hear so many people condemning Saudi Arabia for what they're doing to the people of Yemen, but not once has anybody been called an Islamophobe. It's just so it's they're picking and choosing like who they're calling, racist, who they're calling prejudice.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to too, because she's not the first Muslim American woman, for what it's worth, to be censured. Ilhan Omar was also censured.
Yep.
I think
For calling the same thing for
for
Israel.
exactly the same thing, right? For just, yeah.
For basically saying Israel buys out
criticizing
people.
Israel. And then she was also removed from her committees. So she was removed from the House Foreign Affairs Committee for similar comments she made for comments against Israel. So yeah, it's just I think it is. I think it's just Islamophobia, and that's speaking directly to Islamophobia is that bill that I didn't hear about this. You told me about this. That apparently I don't know this guy, Representative Ryan Zink from Montana.
Zinky.
Zinky maybe Zink.
I'm gonna call him Zinky.
Yeah, just call him little Zinky boy.
Little Zinky boy.
He introduced a bill Thursday, which I assume means last Thursday. I think that was the second, that would ban all Palestinians from entering the U.S. This is just, and also expelling any of those that are already here. So just expelling any Palestinian and banning Palestinians from information. So this is just kind of like hats off, mask off, just out and out racist, right? Like this is just.
So we'll censor Rashida Tlaib, who is a Palestinian, by the way.
Yeah,
so there's
and,
for that context.
I also should mention that Rashida Tlaib has family still in the West Bank, so like she has a lot of family.
Her family's getting bombed. So if Rashida Tlaib was gonna get censored, but then this fucking Neanderthal comes out, this fucking ape turns around and be like, oh, by the way, we should also, besides bomb the fuck out of them, expel them and not allow them for future reference into the country. But somehow she is the racist. Somehow she's being anti-Semitic. But this is not Islamophobic at all.
Yeah, she's the bad guy in this.
Palestinians.
It's insane. I mean, this is not on
and not all Palestinians are Muslim, by the way. There's Christians as well, a large sect. But this is just obviously Islamophobic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is not unlike, what was it, Trump's Muslim ban in 2017, whatever.
Yeah.
That got struck down, I believe. That got struck down as unconstitutional. But
we need to ban all Muslims from entering until we figure out what's going on. I don't remember the exact quote.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember
what actually. I don't remember like the details of that. What happened to it in the end? But yeah, same shit. It's just blatant, like I said, mask off Islamophobia and just racism, and it's getting tiring to see day in and day out. And I don't know.
It's the same thing. It's like, Hamas breaks out, kills a bunch of people. We all reject it. This is not good. This is not what you should do. And then, what the fuck's his face? From Florida.
DeSantis?
No, for DeSantis. Marco Rubio turns around and says we need to eradicate them all. Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, I remember you. Shoot.
So somebody's like, oh, Israel should be, there should be something done because Israel is doing this literal genocide against Palestinians by literally bombing an open air prison, which is Gaza. and then somebody turns around is like, which we need to eradicate everybody. But this one is anti-Semitic, but this one is not Islamophobic.
Nobody mentioned it, right? I didn't even hear that. That didn't even come across my radar when you. I remember that was like that episode we talked about Israel. You mentioned the Marco Rubio thing, and I that hadn't come across my radar yet. I hadn't heard that yet. So like, that's how like little people care about like out and out racist or genocidal comments against brown people. I mean, is essentially what we're talking about. I mean, I think that's probably what it comes down to at some level is just racism, right? Because the example you gave of Saudi Arabia on Yemeni crime, nobody cares about the
bombing of the Yemeni people.
Yeah, nobody cares about that, and nobody will rebuke Saudi Arabia, and I think that's just because nobody cares because it's brown on brown. But then when it's white on brown, which is what Israel is, I mean that's like the joke, or not. It's not a joke, but that's the stat, right? Is that Israel has the highest level of skin cancer in all of the Middle East by like an alarming amount, and the obvious answer as to why is because they're
white.
They're white people that just move there.
They're
not
from
indigenous.
Eastern fucking Europe. They're Slavs. Okay, they're Jews,
or
but
from Long Island, or from like Montana, or whatever the fuck, right? Because of the whole right of return. So it's just
right of return. Who gave them the right? Who set up that right? I'm sorry, but like, good God.
Yeah. So it's just it's why they have a higher skin cancer rate is because they're white people. So that's why we care. And I think that was my point, was that it's based on racism. In the end, it's all based on racism, and I argue that racism is just based on capitalism, and it all comes back to capitalism. But that's because I'm a Marxist, and I think that's how I view the world, as a rich versus poor, capitalist versus socialist dynamic.
Another great point to this is speaking about the racism that Israelis have towards not just Muslims,
but everybody,
their own people.
Yeah.
Ethiopian Jews, and this is a fact.
Yeah,
they would go for the past 50 years would immigrate into Israel because this is they're coming home, they're going back to the Jewish land, and they have every single right apparently as the Ashkenazi Jews or any other Jews. They gave them illegally and without consent contraceptives so they would not reproduce because they're not the right skin color.
That's real eugenic shit.
Yeah,
that's
so
Nazi shit.
That's literally some Nazi shit. So they're not like, okay, like let's put aside the Islamophobic or Muslim, their own people, Jewish people, because they're not white.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
I mean, what more? I mean, I feel like this is like we're just beating the dead horse here every week, because every week we have updates on just like more just atrocities and just more horrible shit that Israel has committed, and still there's still people like Rashid Tlaib being censured in Congress for saying, hey, maybe Israel shouldn't be doing this heinous shit. Yeah, I mean. And speaking of Israel, I mean, the news report said at least 6 were killed in another Israeli strike at Al Shifa hospital complex. And Israel now, as their ground forces are pushing deeper and deeper into Gaza. Remember we mentioned, I think it was last week, that they had the ground forces, the IDF had surrounded Gaza, and then now they are pushing in. I don't have any details specific. I don't know if there are many details because of how much internet and cell
lack of connectivity from people in Gaza to here. Yeah, so it's pretty speculative at this point. I don't know if if they've actually entered Gaza yet?
Yeah, they have entered, and they're pushing in deeper and deeper.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, that seems, I don't know, because like on the surface, like Gaza is only only a few miles wide, I think, or 2 miles wide, or I forget the.
It's only a few miles wide, but it's a bit long. It's like good, like
so,
it was like 15 miles or something.
Unless it's like they're going pretty slow. I mean, that wouldn't take very long to kind of.
Guerrilla warfare.
I mean, like unless there's like they're meeting resistance, which I don't know.
There's no way to know. There's no information coming out, which is kind of disgusting because we don't know what the hell's got. For all we know, they're just mass murdering civilians right now.
I mean that's entirely true. That's kind of what we feared last time when we had heard that they were going to be going in this hot and heavy. Was like we were worried that this was going to be it. This is going to be kind of a final extermination, because before they went in, they did cut cell and TV server, cell and internet and. Electrical services. So
that's so suspicious. Why would you do that?
Yeah,
unless you got something to cover up.
No say, but that is a real bummer. And I know there's just been a ton of kind of podcasts and other people that have been following that story a little closer than we have. And I've had to take a break. I've just been kind of real busy in my personal life, and also just like mentally and just like whatever. I'm like, I just can't listen to another Gaza Palestine podcast or another episode of whatever about Palestine.
It's just
like,
so sad. It's
it's just a constant.
especially coming from like a background where my family has been mass slaughtered for generations by multiple different types of people. It like my parents, like it really affects them. Like I don't know how many times I saw my mom just about to cry because we know what they're going through.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, we know what they're going through, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting, and that's why you'll rarely see a Bosnian in general that does not support Palestine.
That's been really cool to see. There's been a lot of Latin American countries come out in support of Palestine. There's been a lot of Eastern European.
The third world in general.
Yeah, just the third world. What was it? There was that meme that's going around in like super like tanky circles, like the hardcore lefties, like Kim Jong Un in North Korea doesn't recognize Israel as a legitimate state, and they support the people of Palestine. I'm just like, yo, base North Korea, let's go. But I'm a big North Korea Stalin stan, so I'm a tanky.
Jesus. Yeah, I don't know about North Korea, dog.
Let's do an episode on North Korea. Let's actually I know we say we're gonna do these episodes, and we've done this. We say this every week. Let's do an episode on this. Let's do an episode on this. And then both of us work so much and just have such a busy life that we ended up just doing like news recaps, which I like. I like this, and I know we want to do more like deeper dive research episodes.
Do it.
We're still promising the Yugoslavia episode. We're still promising that, but I would love to do a North Korean episode.
No, we can. We could do one on every single social state, but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, that's just the type of stuff that it's just the amount of research that takes. But I will say that in December I have 4 weeks of not class. I don't have it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I have a lot of free time coming up.
Yeah. I have about 70 to 80% of the information I need for that Yugoslavia video.
Yeah, and I need to catch up. But my task was to do Yugoslavia 91 to present, right, or fall of Soviet Union to present.
No, the fall of Yugoslavia.
Oh, the collapse of Yugoslavia.
Yeah, the collapse of Yugoslavia.
Yeah. And just kind of where they are politically and economically as a capitalist state now.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the many states that make up that region of Yugoslavia.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much information, and it's not like the USSR where you can actually find a decent amount of information. Yugoslavia was, especially earlier on, in the 40s and 50s, there is not as much information as you would think there is.
Oh, really?
Well, and not as much as the USSR. So, they're saying oh, this person has said that this was happening.
Oh, so it's a lot of hearsay stuff.
Yeah, a lot of hearsay stuff. So I've been trying to do unbiased research for the most part, because I can think with my fucking commie head and be like, all right, I'm gonna have a biased view of all this, but I'm trying to take everything in without a biased view.
Yeah.
So I'm reading and learning about interactions between Tito and Stalin, and reading, learning more about Stalin in the meantime, and the structure of the USSR, because the things involved. So it takes so much time. It was I think it's a 7-page paper thus far.
Damn.
A 6-page paper that I've written thus far.
You're doing the actual research.
Yeah,
I respect that. Damn, I got to step up my game then. Maybe I should choose a topic and just do my own research, because I love research. That's why I want to go back, and I'm working on my. I think I've mentioned now.
We can finish the Yugoslavia video first, and then we can maybe head towards
do something else.
Yeah.
Well, you just put so much work in. I feel like I should step up and just to get this ball rolling on something else. Yeah, I've mentioned this a couple times. I think that I'm in the middle of my application to go get my master's and PhD, and I just I think I'm subconsciously putting it off because I just don't want to do it.
Student net just going. Wah!
Yeah, but I mean, I like research. I like writing. I like research. I like the kind of that part of being a historian, having history degrees. But
what would you want to go for your master's?
It's Eastern European.
Really?
Yeah, it's Russian history basically. It's all based on commie shit.
Is there a degree in communist history?
Not exactly, but you can specialize in the politics of a region from a time. So I was considering that, but I'm also strongly considering just ancient history, because I just love that time period.
Yeah, that's my archaeology degree. Got me into that as well. Yeah,
it's just so fun.
And then I couldn't find a job with it afterwards.
Yeah, so I know that doing this, I have a secondary education degree also now. So I have my degree is also in teaching middle school and high school. So that's what my career path is in. Is I have a history degree, but also a secondary education. So that's how I marry the two, is to be a high school history teacher or a middle school history teacher, which is I've done in the past too. if I commit to this path, I'm basically like pigeonholing myself to just teaching at a college level. Like I would have to just become a history professor, and that's pretty much
That's
all I can
dope.
do.
That's dope as fuck, though. Come
Yeah,
on.
it is cool, and
I'm a
that is
commie history
like,
professor has a podcast.
yeah. I mean, and that would be
Yeah.
like my goal, but like also like I'm going in that recognizing that like just getting a public education job as a history teacher is really hard. There's like very little jobs in history for public education. History, it's mostly STEM and special ed are like in dire needs. Like math, science, and special education teachers are really needed.
You ever tried in economics, perhaps?
Not that I've seen job postings for it. My point is that just like I'm limiting myself even further by like what jobs are available, just because like history professor jobs are also like it's just the job market's really tough, right? So like
Yeah.
you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never been through that job market, so I don't know
Yeah.
how it looks like. But I'll take your
Yeah,
word
I
for
was
it.
even considering just getting a special education a master's in special education, like to do like special education teaching, and working with kids with like just different like diverse learning needs, just because that is a guaranteed job at a higher rate of pay than like a history
Yeah.
teacher would make. Like
I think my girlfriend's going back. She's already signed up for school, and she's going to go back for her second bachelor's for, I think it's child development.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Early child development. Yeah.
yeah, I had to take a lot of early childhood development classes.
She
in getting my
loves
degree.
that. She's
yeah.
oh god. She got her degree in like strategic integration, so it's like a communications degree.
Yeah.
But like she like her passion was with children,
Okay.
and so she ended up being a trainer for teaching people basically how to become preschool teachers, right? But
That's cool.
She has like the opportunity to go back and get a degree in early childhood education. So I thought that was really cool.
That's
It
awesome. Yeah.
inspired
So
me.
that
And
would
made
be
me wanna,
that'd be like an early childhood or primary degree. So like I have a secondary education, so middle school, high school. I can't like I don't have the qualifications to teach like elementary school, so I don't have like an elementary degree. So that was, kind of sounds like what she would be doing. But I did have to take a lot of early childhood development classes in college, so I took a lot of those classes. So like I understand like the psychology and the development of early childhood, because that's just required to get an education degree. Period.
Yeah.
But they were fun classes. It was interesting. But
That's her
I
passion.
yeah, I'm just not super into like the younger grades. Those kids, you have, dude. If you think teaching is hard, like being like on, because like the way I described it to somebody recently, I forget who I was talking to, but I was describing it as like imagine being like a stand-up comic and you have like an hour-long set, right? And like you do that like 5 or 6 times a day of like that set, because like it is a performance. You're up there on the stage in front of kids, and it is like it's not you, right? It's not your normal personality. It's like your teacher personality. So you put on this kind of patois and this personality, and you kind of like do a set. You do like an act basically. You're like 50% actor, 50% like teacher, and it's just exhausting to like do that, to like be that other person all day.
Yeah.
To do that at like a high school level, you can kind of mostly be yourself with a little bit of like extra oomph in it. But to do that at like the younger grades, like elementary school, like
You have to put
K
on like
through
this
6,
face.
you have
All
to
right,
be so yeah.
guys,
It's just
all right, yeah.
so much work. I like watch those like I don't have that. I'm not that kind of guy. Like my teaching style is I like sit on a desk. Or like sit on a like I'm like sitting on a desk, and I'll like talk to my kids and have a discussion or whatever, and it's pretty chill. But like those elementary school teachers that are just like put on a smiley face, like let's all like everybody clean up, and it's just like, dude, that energy it takes, you have to just be out of 10 all day. It's fucking exhausting to do that, and like I could never do that.
Yeah,
so
it's
shout out to people
mentally
that
draining.
have that. Like
That kind of stuff is mentally draining.
Yeah.
I used to, I mean, not like that's fucking comparable, but it's like kind of relevant. I used to be a lead soccer coach for ages from, was it 1.5 to 6 years old?
that's sick.
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
so that was fun.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
it
hella
was-
fun. I love hanging out with kids. Like I love working with kids, but like I was the soccer club like sponsor or whatever at my last school for the 7th and 8th grade. So like I was out there on the field with them for the younger grades too, and it is fun. I love working with like the younger kids in like limited capacities, but doing that as like a 9 to
All day
5,
thing? Yeah,
dude,
no.
it's not. It's like it's. Shout out to those like elementary school, and one of my closest friends, one of my longest time closest friends is she's gone back and forth. She's been like first and second. I think she's doing second now, or first man. Maybe I'm not actually sure. And like yeah, she is like an awesome rock star teacher, but she teaches those younger grades, and like like she's exhausted, and like rightfully so. So am I teaching 9th grade, but she's exhausted in like a different way.
Yeah.
So-
Speaking of kids, are you ever thinking about having any?
Nah.
No?
Me and my wife aren't gonna have kids. No, I mean she's a I don't know if I mentioned it before. My wife's a doctor. I'm a teacher. Neither of us have any time. Like you know,
Yeah.
we're both like we have a lot of dogs and animals. We travel.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have any kids. Yeah.
Yeah, my,
How
my
about you?
girlfriend
How
is
about you?
obsessed with kids.
Oh, okay, so that's
So
probably on the horizon for you at some point.
probably,
You guys
yeah.
are pretty serious, right?
Yeah, we're pretty
Okay.
serious. We're like we're just basically counting the months for me to like propose and
Oh,
that
okay.
kind of stuff.
What's stopping you?
What?
What's stopping you?
Uh,
This took a turn from politics and
Oh, yeah.
news to just
Well,
getting
I
real
mean,
personal.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. We did finish our set, and we got a little bit of time. So I figured, people get to know us a little bit better, so they understand the context of who we are.
Sure.
I mean, just money, man. Like
Yeah, no,
I
it's
want to.
expensive. I went into debt. I got a K's jeweler credit card to get my
Mm,
engagement ring. Yeah.
is it cheaper? The interest rate cheaper than like
No,
a
it's
regular
fucking
card?
expensive.
Then why just not use a regular credit card?
Because I didn't have a credit card actually at the time.
Okay.
I mean, I had like a lower limit, like for my Wells Fargo card or whatever. But I don't know. I forget what the details surrounding this. A while. I mean, our third anniversary is coming up soon.
Wow,
I've
congrats,
been married
dude.
super long, but yeah, thanks. But yeah, I got a K Jewelers credit card. I've actually finished paying it off a while back. I still have the card, but it's paid off, so I paid that off pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my credit card can go up to I don't know, like $7,000 or something like that.
Oh,
But I've
nice.
never even gone above like 15. I don't know. I don't want to put like a decent size price on my credit and just be like, oh, I got like $6,000 to pay off.
Yeah,
I don't have any
I've been-
student debt, and I'm happy, and I don't want any debt.
I have so much student debt, but I have been aggressively paying down my credit cards because I had a lot of credit card debt, and I've just been really trying to get that down out of control. Me and my wife are trying to buy a house. We rent now. We moved to Seattle in June, knowing we were going to rent for probably a year or two, but we're really like looking for a house, and it's like what we've discovered is practically impossible.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
Welcome.
it's all
to
like 1 million plus, and
America.
it's like even though we were both like working professionals, like it's just not feasible. So she's a resident doctor. We moved here for her to just start her residency program to be a doctor. She graduated med school in Arizona. But just with the way it works with our salaries now, it's just not possible. Like
Yeah.
our neighbor, their house went for sale for like the low 500s or high 400s, and that's like really cheap
That's
in
cheap
our
as
area.
fuck.
And it's a pretty nice house. It's the next door house. When you walk out, you can take a look at it. But I think it was sold the same day. It was sold.
Yeah,
the exact
because
same day.
people
and
are
I'm pretty sure it was a rental
stalking.
property. Yeah.
People are stalking, like Redfin,
Yeah.
Zillow. They're just constantly.
And I think what's happened is because it was at a fairly reasonable price. I think a rental company bought it and just like offered probably like a few percent over what they were asking, just to not have to deal with anything. Like, hey,
Honestly,
we'll give you like a little extra, and they're probably gonna rent it out for way too much or knock it down because they're demolishing a lot of the houses. I live in a cool neighborhood with a bunch of cool old houses, and they are knocking some of them down and like building these dumb like 4/1 or 5/1.
honestly, if I was
whatever.
selling my house, I would just tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. If I ever own a house and I ever decide that, like, because I want to buy a house one day, I assume I will because I married a doctor, so she's a resident doctor now. So when she becomes an attending, she will make considerably more money. So I have that privilege of like, yeah, we will buy a house someday, and like if I ever sell that house, I will absolutely never fucking sell it to any kind. It will
Absolutely
be
not.
like a local person that I sell it to, or a family, or a person, not a rental property, or not some like conglomerate or whatever.
100%. I don't know.
So-
I'm trying to get a house eventually, but I mean, realistically, I'm like maybe a townhouse for like 250, 300
Yeah, a
grand if I
condo or
could find
something.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first, and then like pay that off a little bit, then sell it.
Yeah, like a starter home, basically, right?
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's the way it goes, You
I don't
got
know.
to build equity through housing, and that's through
Exactly.
real estate, and that's how. I mean, that's like if we live. I mean, this turned into like a weird. We're just talking about
It's all good.
financial advising now, but I mean that's how it works, right? Like
We're talking about capitalism in this current age.
yeah,
of,
and
like,
it's
how
also like
pricing
this goes
works,
back to
man.
racism, right? I mean, this is why like marginalized people of color, in particular Black people, have like consistently been like not able to like get a foothold in America, is because money comes through like three ways, basically, right? Real estate holdings, business owning, or like inheritance, right? That's like the three-way you make money.
For large amounts of
For
money.
most
yes.
of people, yeah. For most people, it's like the way to build wealth and like accumulate wealth over generation and just keep having snowballing is through those three means. And like all three of those, inheritance, obviously, because you need money to inherit. You need your parents to have money to inherit, and the other two were prohibited from Black people for most of the time. Like home loans weren't allowed. You weren't allowed to buy a house. So like that's generational wealth is barred from African Americans for Black people. So that's how you build wealth, right? Is through housing. So you have a house, you sell a house, you buy a bigger house, you sell that house. I mean, that's how you slowly snowball wealth. And my goal is not to make money, but my goal is just to have a comfortable house.
Yeah.
And I have a comfortable house. I like my house. However, we pay an exorbitant amount in rent because it's a nice house in Seattle. So
Yeah.
You know.
I was coming down here. I was like, wow, they even got a basement.
Yeah, we got a
That
nice
is
basement.
cool,
we have a
man.
nice. We have an attic too. We have a furnished attic upstairs too.
Wow, really?
We have a nice house. We have a nice backyard. We have a detached garage. I'm not to brag, but I got a pretty nice house.
Well,
But I
that's
also
freaking
pay
nice.
the most you can imagine for rent.
Yeah.
Many thousands of dollars in rent.
Jesus
So yeah,
Christ.
yeah,
Yeah, for I think it's like we have a 1 bedroom apartment with like a den,
yeah.
and it's still like fucking like almost 19. And
Oh
up in
yeah,
like
I pay way more than that.
up
but yeah.
up. I'm not gonna dox myself, but like
Yeah.
up a little farther north.
Yeah,
But Jesus Christ,
yeah. It's brutal, man.
yeah,
And our landlord's cool. I mean, he's just a guy, and I've only met him a couple times, but he's just a dude, and he seems kind of cool. But he's still a landlord, so like there's a baseline of. I mean, I'm not gonna knock him personally. Like this is kind of like it's the ACAB thing. Like all cops are bastards, right? Like, and you can every cop everywhere, fuck them. And I kind of feel the same way about landlords, right? Like all landlords are parasites, but I will say that like landlords live in a different framework of like they don't all have to be total assholes, and a lot of times they aren't. Like I lived in a place in Arizona where like the landlords weren't total pieces of shit. In fact, they weren't pieces of shit at all, but they were still landlords.
the act of being a
So
landlord.
they still get the gulag, but maybe not as long as everyone else.
I'll let the little house, like if you own a house and you sell it and you rent it out, say if you just have an extra house because your family left one out, I'll let it slide. You don't get the gulag. But if you're a company that buys houses and then rents them out,
Yeah.
I mean, onto the chopping block with
Well,
you.
this guy, he was a friend of mine in Arizona. He bought like this complex that had like multiple units, multiple houses, multiple little studios,
Yeah.
like a 2-story, and he just rented them to all of his friends for like just dirt cheap. We paid like just a couple $100 in rent, basically.
Yeah, but that's different, you know. That's
And it was like a punk venue too. A bunch of bands played there, and like it was a cool little place. I lived there for many years, 10 years almost. In
Wow.
Arizona, yeah. So a lot of my friends still live there. My best friend still lives there. So yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Under the same landlord. So yeah, and they're
I would
they're pretty
would kind of like that, to be honest with you.
cool. Yeah. So like that type of landlord, they're fine.
Yeah. That's different, like I said, than like this huge manufactured landlord,
I
or
agree.
just like pumping out like rental complexes.
For
and
sure.
You're paying 30% of what the mortgage is, and he's not only paying off their own mortgage, but they're literally making money on top of it.
Yeah.
And like they buy the house cash, so like it's one thing if you were like a small landlord, you still have to pay the mortgage because you never cashed it out.
Yeah, right.
And then you just pay a little bit. You ask for a little bit more
No,
than
this
what
is
the mortgage
100%
is.
profit for these guys. Yeah.
Exactly. They pay everything off 100%, and then they still increase that price more than what the mortgage would have been in a general sense. So they're making like fucking $2,000 a month off of you, right? Pure cash. And then there are 50 other apartments. Can you imagine?
I mean, the amount of revenue that brings in is insane, right?
That's like what? I'm literally $1 million a month.
Yeah, over month, year over year. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, and then 3 years later, they're
Well,
worth
then
like,
that's how they're able to just snatch up properties day of.
Yeah.
With cash in hand. I mean,
they probably hire 2 people just to constantly watch Zillow and like all that stuff, and just whenever it pops up.
I'm sure it's a whole team. I mean, I don't know how that works. But
Jesus
didn't
Christ.
Zillow recently get in trouble for like?
Overpricing things.
No, it was Zillow itself bought like. No, maybe it wasn't Zillow. I forget what. I don't know. I don't want to
Redfin?
speak too much of it. It was one of those places they like overbought, and then like the market crashed, and like they overbought, and they were like overinvested by like billions of dollars or millions of dollars.
BlackRock?
I forget. I don't remember. I'll pull it up next week. I'll have it ready for next week. Anyway,
We should do something on housing, maybe.
we should do something on housing. We should talk. We should have the guest we should have for that is like somebody like well, I don't want to say their name, but a member of CP that's like super involved with like the local houseless and the like homeless coalition, and they know like everything there is to know about like what it is to be homeless in Seattle. And they have a big, their fingers on the pulse of like the housing market and like that whole life. So I'll reach out to them on Discord.
Yeah.
We have
along with our other the CPOSA member that would like to come on. Cause
the one. Yeah. We'll talk to him too.
Would you like to do that next week?
Yeah, we should talk to him.
Yeah, because I believe he's on vacation.
Yeah,
next
okay.
week.
We'll reach out to him because I'm also on vacation the week after. Damn, I have fall break starting. I go back to school full time. This is my 3-day weekend today, but then I go back to school next week, and then I have a week off. So I have 9 days off after next Friday.
I will message him and see if he wants to come on next week.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna call it here. You ready to call it?
Absolutely.
Sweet, guys. Well, hey, get out there on the street for Palestine. Donate if you can to any. There's a ton of funds going to Palestine, to Palestinian people. Support your local. There's a cool bakery, the baklava at the event on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
There's a cool bakery in Seattle that all their proceeds go to to Palestine, so that was pretty cool. Join your local CPUSA. Join your PSL. Join your DSA if you have to, if that's all you got in your town. But get out there and get active in your local political community. That's kind of the number one thing. Number two thing is to follow us on social media.
Absolutely. Subscribe. What the fuck are you doing watching our goddamn video?
Do you have the data for how many people watch without subscribing?
Oh, God, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, it's not much regardless.
Not a lot of people watch, period.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway,
I think more people watch on our audio than our video. So.
Yeah, the audio's doing okay. Yeah, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share, follow us.
Rhetoric.
Yeah, Revolutionary Rhetoric everywhere. Revolutionary Rhetoric Pod everywhere. Search us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Revolutionary Rhetoric. Send us an email, revolutionaryrhetoric@gmail.com. And make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join your CPUSA and have a good one. You want to add something?
I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
We might be getting a new logo, intro, and outro here soon. We're trying to get something done. And it might look really cool, so I'll see what we can do.
Or if you're out there listening and you're a graphic designer or like video editor or video maker, do it for us for free.
Well, we can pay you.
We can pay you. We're happy to pay you.
We're happy to pay you.
We're also happy to receive it for free, but we can pay you.
All right, guys.
Well, I'm good. If you're good,
watch that video.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, just click it. All right. Bye.
Bye.